Good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. We are coming to you live to offer you the opportunity to ask us wonderful questions that you may have going on in your brain post Mother's Day. Anything that you've got going, let us know. We are in that period of time where we're just on the cusp of really hitting that June recruiting period, and we've got Eric and we've got Ian here. So anything that you may have by way of questions, this is the time. Go ahead and hit us up. We would love to hear about it. But before we do, we did have a question from the board that I really wanted to hit on. And again, this is from our friend Utah Horn, who is, he's forecasting a little bit. Again, we're in a really good spot here, but it's a legitimate question. We've got some QBs camping soon. So this will go to you, Eric. Who do you prefer? Now, there's two on the table. Who do you prefer in terms of our QB take in 26?
Well, I don't really have a preference yet. Here's what I would do. Texas is going to need to take a 2-quarterback class at some point. I don't think it's going to be this class. I could be wrong. They're still looking at Keelan Russell, and they have KJ Lacey committed. So it could still end up being a 2-quarterback class, but they need a 2-quarterback class either this cycle or next cycle. I would personally punt it till next cycle. You're going to have Troy Hune and Dia Bell are both going to camp on June 1st. They're both going to look good. Texas has offered both. They both visited. Texas likes both. I would say, hey, look, we're going to take a 2-quarterback class. Whichever one you guys wants in, you're in. You got a spot. The first guy that takes it is probably going to be the best one of those two because it's going to show that he's not shy of competition. It shows that he's fully bought into Sark and his offense and what Texas can do for him. And then I would still make it a 2-quarterback class, but I'd be willing to take both of them. The numbers dictate that they should. And because Trey Owens showed so much promise throughout spring ball, I don't think that they feel the need to take a 2-quarterback class in 2025. They can punt it to 2026.
How are we feeling? Oh, do you have anything there, Ian?
I actually have a take here.
Oh, all right.
I don't know who the guys are yet. 2026 is too far ahead for me to have watched film, but I would want the guy that's more likely to stay at Texas.
Okay.
Because Sark has been unique in that he doesn't really seem to go for the transfer quarterbacks. He'd rather play a guy that he's developed for 3 years or something and put him out there and have a guy that's like a joystick for him with his playbook. So I would, you want a certain baseline of talent, or else you have a guy that sticks around for 4 or 5 years that is never ever going to play for you because he's not good enough. So I don't want that. But I don't know, the guy that wants to be the quarterback for Sarkisian, I almost feel like is because the other guy, if the other guy's not like that, I don't know if he's going to end up sticking in today's climate.
Well, that's why you say the first guy in is most likely going to stick. He's going to be the guy that's bought in, that wants to be there the most, that understands the situation clearly. They're going to have to wait behind Arch. They might have to wait behind Owens. They might have to wait behind Lacey. They're probably not going to have to wait behind all those guys. That's just not how a modern quarterback depth chart works. But yeah, that's where I would take the 2-quarterback class, and then 2-quarterback class protects you from one of those guys leaving as well. But after yours leaves, it's just Manning, Owens, and probably Lacey. That the ideal number is 4.
Do you feel that it's one of those things that seems a little bit almost counter to one another? I mean, you want to take a 2-quarterback class to protect yourself from one of them leaving, but by taking a 2-quarterback class, you might ensure yourself that one of them may leave. Do you feel that it's that way, or
I wrote a tweet a long time ago, the modern quarterback paradox. Because of the new climate, like you said, you have to take more quarterbacks, but you take more quarterbacks, it's more likely that you lose quarterbacks. So that's just the nature of it. But the goal is to keep the best quarterback and lose the secondary quarterback. That goes for every position. Keep the best player, and they're more often than not they're going to do that. They're going to lose certain players at quarterback. It's just there's too big of demand for it. You saw, Malik Murphy ended up in a good situation. Had he played more, he probably would have ended up at an even better situation. But that's just the nature of the modern game. Sark has done really well on the mental evaluation of the position so far. Arch didn't leave when a lot of other quarterbacks would have left. You saw Jackson Arnold probably force Dylan Gabriel out in Oklahoma. And then you've got Owens who committed following Arch Manning, knowing full well that Arch Manning is going to get a lot of rope for a lot of playing time, and he was going to have to wait. So, but the way that Sark talks behind the scenes about Owens sounds like he's talking about Manning. Can't tell the difference really. And so the Lacey's going to have to wait. The next guy's going to have to wait. There's going to have to be mature kids that know that once they Once they do wait, then they're going to be in a very good situation, probably have a chance to be drafted in the first round, maybe win a Heisman. So Sark made it transactional, and that, you know, you're more likely to wait your turn if you know the reward is going to be there for you on the other end.
Do you feel we have a question here about specifically the defensive tackle position, and I want to talk to you a little bit about this, Ian, because this question also goes into scheme, right? We've talked about a lot about running our 2-4, or what PK likes to run on the base. I mean, are we going to highlight a zero technique even, or is it? I know we kind of alter between the 3 technique and the traditional nose, but how do you feel about PK employing a zero technique? And if that's the case, what are the characteristics that you're really looking for in that position?
You know, barring major changes from Nansen as the new co-coordinator, I don't think a zero technique or even a big nose in general is quite as important in Texas's scheme as the big 3 technique who can 2 gap, but also rush the passer some. So like Washington, he had like Vita Vea, who was, you know, Eric knows him well, Greg Gaines, and then Tavondre Sweat was ideal. Alex January projects really well there. We'll see about Melvin Hills or Dre Bledsoe. Alfred Collins, theoretically, if he played lower, which we may see this year. So I would say you want to look for like the prize guy that Texas desperately wants is the 6'3 plus, 320 pound plus guy who has power, but can also rush the passer when it's 2nd and 10 and he doesn't have to stop the run. So a bit of a clogger, but with a little bit of athleticism. Basically, you know, the most rare and valuable
right
kind of guys.
So and then that, Eric,
let Eric tell you who those guys are.
Yeah, who's on the table for us, Eric?
Well, Zion Williams is the guy that fits that. He's about 6'4", 3. He's almost up to 340 now, but he can lean up pretty well. First time I saw him in February, it was 320, and had a pretty flat belly. Saw him a couple weeks ago. This is after some school visits. Now he likes to eat. The way to his heart is through the kitchen table, and so he's gained a lot of weight on some of these visits. But he'll lean up. I asked him what's he going to do this summer besides football. He said I'm going to lose weight, which of course that's still probably, you know, directionally towards football. But Zion Williams out of Lufkin is a big one. That's going to be Eric. I'm sorry, I read my name there. That's going to be LSU versus Texas. And then you got, you know, I think you could say DJ Sanders could play there. He's a Belleville kid, maybe more athletic than Zion, but not quite as big. Maybe not quite, doesn't possess quite the anchor versus the run. And they're looking out of state. You know, out of state guys are going to be tough to get. They like a guy out of Georgia. It's going to be tough to pull him. He's from a neighboring city of Athens. Kevin Wynn, not going to be an easy guy to get. But, you know, we'll see. The more important it is, the more likely Texas is to land somebody they need. You know, that's just how it works in NIL recruiting.
Something we were talking about when I say we, none of you guys, my dad and I, about the idea of proportionally how many big men are generally in a recruiting class. That is to say, how many are even available? Because you start looking at obviously the statistics of just human beings in general over a certain height, and that percentage drops drastically. So if you were to guess, like you're looking at the available players in each cycle, what percentage of those would even qualify for that position?
10% maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just way more skill players. You know, it's easier to find offensive linemen. They're also going to have a longer time to develop. That's why they stock so many of them on the offensive line. They take a long time to develop. But finding real legit defensive tackles, that's 2%. I mean, Texas, you're luckily in any class with a top 100 defensive or top 100 recruits in the state are tackle that Texas really wants and prioritizes. That's just not that common. There's more this cycle than normal. That's what 4 or 5 maybe that they even offered out of 100. It's a low percentage. That's why we're always saying scarcity drives the market. That's why everybody's going crazy in the portal. The NFL goes crazy for them too. If there's a league beyond the NFL, that league would go crazy for them as well.
Are there any concerns? This is one of the questions that pops up relatively frequently, and we've got our friend Rooster here. Do you have, this is following up from your article on InsideTexas.com, which we invite you to check out. We've got a special going there for 2 months for $1. That's IT1 if you want to use that promo code. But Eric wrote an article at InsideTexas.com. And we're following up here a little bit. Should we have any concern at DB recruiting? And I'm going to read the subtext here just a little bit, because one of the key themes that's been coming up has been our position coaches and their ability to recruit. That's whether it's justified or not, that seems to be a common refrain amongst the fans. And I'd love for you to talk about how that's going right now with that position group.
Yeah, yesterday I wrote an article talking about the readers were asking for clarity on who was being prioritized at each position. So I went by each position, wrote down who the top priorities are. Today I'm going to actually almost have it finished. I'll have an article of who I think is the most likely class at this point. It's still early. It's volume 2. I did one in February that has already changed quite a bit. That's just the nature of it with this staff. Their big board is constantly evolving. They're never satisfied with the evaluation. They keep going through it. And they change it. They're not afraid to move names around. Now, one thing, a byproduct of covering recruiting is your readers are always trying to get you worried about position groups, and they try this every single year. I'm worried about this one. I'm worried about that one. I'm not worried about DBs. The only position group I've worried about the last couple cycles has been defensive tackle, and here we are. I'm not worried about defensive backs at all. I don't think there's anything wrong with the big board. Maybe it's a failing on my part of reporting. Dorian Brew is right there. Caleb Chester is right there. Aiden Anding is right there. They're reaching out to Devin Williams now. He's taking an official visit, wrote a big article on him last week. So I think the cornerback big board is perfectly fine. They are just not super aggressive to push early. They want to see how it's going to shake out. They want to meet these kids and get to know them as good as possible. Last year everybody said they should be going after Selman Bridges. I'm like, no, Selman's not really a priority at this point. They're going to play the long game on Wardell Mack, Kobe Black. They did get Santana Wilson relatively early. I don't think there's any reason to be concerned about any position outside of defensive tackle in this recruiting class.
Eric, you tell me if you think this is right. Cornerback in particular, especially at Texas, seems like a position where the coaching and development matters a little more. Like you'll see like TCU under Gary Patterson would crank out NFL cornerbacks, and they were not recruiting at the top of the food chain within the state. The state has so many amazing skill athletes. And sometimes the 5-star corners don't even really pan out that well. And then the East Texas kid that played running back and got switched over or whatever ends up being the best.
Well, what I'm excited about is I'm seeing them go after more what I would call true corners, where the only position is corner. A lot of times you like versatility because if that position doesn't work out, then that player still has value to the roster. But when you do that at corner, it's such a hard position to play corner. You got to be a natural corner and have those feet. I don't have a problem with a corner that's 5'11", 165 pounds coming out of high school. A lot of people want that 6'2", 200. Well, now you question how big he's going to get. Terrence Brooks is a big-ass corner. Is that going to hurt his ability to play the position if he's a second late on the ball because he weighs 5 or 10 pounds too much? Yeah, that's a possibility. That's a concern. So I like the fact that I'm seeing more true corners being taken. I think Wardell Mack is a true corner. I think Santana Wilson is a true corner. Obviously, Malik Muhammad is perfectly fits that stereotype. Dorian Brew. Now, I just saw him the other day. That is a big old kid. Can he stay at corner? I don't know. Give him a chance. Let's see if he can hold it there. But so Roaster says, to your point, we were very successful late last year in recruiting. Well, they were able to be successful late last year because they were patient. That was part of the approach. They didn't reach. They kept room open for a guy like Kobe Black, who they knew that they were going to get probably 4 or 5 months in advance. We knew they were going to get him 4 or 5 months in advance. Wardell Mack, once you saw Florida getting beat up by Utah, I think that was the first game of the season. I knew they were getting Wardell Mack. I should have put an RPM right then and there. And then Santana Wilson was a very underrated player who I think is a true corner, another one that's a little bit on the slender side. Great genes, explosive, true player. I think cornerback recruiting is perfectly fine. I would not get down and with the people that are worried about it. Just let it play out. I don't know what the staff has to do to prove themselves as far as their recruiting approach. They're going to be patient, and then they're going to be successful.
We could probably spend 10 minutes naming 4- and 5-star cornerback recruits that Texas got, where it was like, this guy has NFL size, blah, blah, blah. And then we'll tell you that they ended up at safety before they graduated.
Right. Yeah. I want to, sorry, go ahead, Ian.
That was it.
I want to address this idea, and I want to talk about it more on a global sense. Ryan's bringing, and this was baked into every, seems to me, secondary question we have is our position coaches. And Ryan is saying the quiet part out loud. I have a hard time seeing Sark, who has been incredibly loyal to his staff, and especially a staff that has developed over a period of time, just cutting bait after one season. I don't know. I don't see any of these coaches really on the hot seat moving forward, namely because of their abilities, or at least that what they've been putting on the field. And then second, Sark. What are your thoughts on this, guys? I'll start with you, Ian.
I think if Texas went to the playoffs again, or whatever, if Texas misses their goals for this next season because they can't cover top teams, then I would assume that he is in fact in danger. Because last year it was an issue all season long. It's the primary reason they lost to Washington, and unless you want to say freshman running back fumbles,
which you could say that. You definitely could say the offense shooting itself in the foot, Sark's side of the ball shooting itself in the foot, and coming out flat, penalties, playing very poor football. I mean, that's every bit as much of it as the NFL connection doing NFL things.
But it was the thing against Oklahoma. It was the reason that Kansas State and Houston were near misses. And then the NFL numbers at cornerback have not been good yet for Texas with the new staff. Right. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have a window into what Sark is thinking right now. But to me, if Texas had another season where the secondary was a disappointment, I wouldn't be shocked if he made changes. Eric?
Yeah, I mean, you have to see how the season plays out. I think you're only one season away from being on the hot seat in this profession, no matter what. We've seen a lot of coaches go from sitting in the catbird seat to being out on their tail, out of a job. I was just thinking about this the other day. Look how much everybody wanted Graham Harrell as offensive coordinator at Texas. People were almost dying for that guy. Where's he at? West Virginia now? He's supposed to be the next rising star head coach. It just happens all the time. Yeah, we'll see. I need to know how the season goes. He recruits very well. We haven't seen the NFL pipeline open up yet, but I mean, Ryan Watts just got drafted. Deshaun Jameson played his best football by far in his 1 year with the staff. Malik Muhammad is going to be drafted in the second, third round, maybe even the first, depending on how he tests. And they're recruiting at a high level. So there's a bit of a lag in the NFL talent pipeline, but it's clearly there. It's on its way. But coordination is the bigger issue. I don't think the teaching technique to corners is an issue. I think maybe the coordination between the back end and the front end is something to be concerned about. Does that fall on PK more than it falls on Terry Joseph and Blake Gideon? I don't know. Sark will know that. I don't know that for sure. But I do know it was always kind of a curious thing where Sark hired the defensive back coaches before he hired the defensive coordinator. I mean, that was we talked about that a lot when Sark was first hired and made those hires. So maybe there's some still stuff that they're working through from that initial decision. But I don't know. It's not my job to put coaches on the hot seat. I know Texas fans, if they're not worried about a recruiting class that's going to finish top 5, they're worried about coaching on a top 5 team. Somebody's got to be on the hot seat. We'll see how it plays out.
I know you talked about Wardell, and we don't need to go into it too deep, but Mr. Williams is asking where you see him ending up just based on measurables. Do you see him finishing his career as a field CB, or where do you see him moving along? And so we'll start with Eric, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Ian.
Well, I've asked a lot of people about Kobe Black, and they still think maybe nickel might be in his future or safety. I could see a rotation where Kobe goes to nickel and Wardell goes to boundary cornerback eventually to replace Malik Muhammad. So I think he's going to stick at corner. Honestly, he doesn't have the biggest frame, and durability is a bit of a concern at nickel. You're just in the mix a lot more. Have to be more physical. It takes its toll. We've seen that with Jahdae Barron. I think long term Wardell's probably going to end up at boundary corner.
Ian, do you have any thoughts?
I would say the same. He has great length, is what I'm recalling from my notes on him out of high school. He's fast, long arms. It's not really like your nickel is either going to be insanely quick or like one of your higher IQ guys. And it's like almost a good place sometimes to stick a guy that's like a really good all-around defensive back, but maybe not like a lockdown coverage guy. Mac seems like someone that you want to develop to just erase people outside until you're absolutely sure he can't.
Ian, you are known throughout many communities as one being a Longhorn legend, and I think the other fan base that loves you most is probably our friends north of the Red River. And Brett has a He's got a super chat for us. Thank you, Brett. You're always supporting us, especially when Ian is here, and I really do appreciate that. If you have a super chat that you'd like to throw in, we will guarantee you that we will ask that question regardless of the legitimacy of it. So, Ian, looking at OU's schedule, you see them going 7-5. Now, off camera, you told me you didn't think they'd win a game.
I think lifetime Longhorn is probably better than Longhorn Legend. I don't think I did anything while I was on the 40 acres that anyone really remembers. So Oklahoma, their non-conference is Houston, Tulane, Maine, and the fourth one is Temple. So they have a pretty hard floor of honestly probably 6 games. Every single team that they play in the SEC is good. They got a really tough draw from the SEC's year one. But even if they play 8 games, even if they go 2-6 in the SEC, they're at 6-6. So 7-5 is probably a pretty good guess. I think 8-4 would be a really good year for them and indicative of a very positive 2025 coming around the next year. I'm not one for being bullish on Oklahoma, so I think probably I'll say 6-6.
Oh, okay. I think that's generous.
Their finish is brutal. Let me bring it up real quick.
It sucks. Let's just be
honest. It's going to be a lot of, I mean, if Texas is playing well, you're going to want to watch a lot of Oklahoma football as well. They're finished. Hold on, let me bring it up here real quick. They finished with at Ole Miss, then they get Maine at home. I didn't know. Apparently, Maine's going to put down the hockey sticks long enough to play football. Then they're at Missouri. Missouri's going to be good. Then they get Alabama, but it's at home at least, I guess. And then they're at LSU. So they're at Missouri, at LSU.
It's just absolute. It's there's just no two ways about it. It is. It's not the welcome mat. I mean, let's be really fair here. That's a brutal schedule.
Jackson Arnold's going to be a little more battle tested by the time that portion of the schedule rolls around. But man, that's a tough one.
Or he'll be out with an injury.
Yeah, 8-4 I think is an exceptional season. OU fans won't buy it. They won't want to hear anything about it. But 8-4, we're known as haters, but here we are giving them cover.
We really are. I mean, it's an unenviable position to be in, certainly, especially going into the league.
Here's the thing about Jackson Arnold too is he's got a lot of that. Like he ran a lot at Geyer, right? Denton Geyer. And he ran a lot last year for Oklahoma, and he runs kind of high because he's kind of big. Yeah. And they're going to have to run him for their offense to work. And a young guy like that hasn't been hit a lot yet, going into the SEC after playing the cupcake schedule they got last year, I think there's going to be a big adjustment for him just in knowing how to stay healthy. Like you look at like Sam Ehlinger, his freshman year at Texas, he kept getting hurt over and over and over again. And it took him till the next year to learn how to avoid some of the bigger shots and also just to know how to play through injury and avoid the big ones that knock you out.
Yeah,
I think that
Arch has that same problem. Arch has that same problem with running high. They give you so much surface area to hit. They got to learn that the hard way. We'll see. That's going to be oh man, football can't get it fast enough.
Well, I want to talk about one of our friends, Laura Baker, who's been a big supporter of this. We want to say thank you to her. I know that we've got somebody on this particular call that has some experience with Laura. Laura is she's a UT grad. She's a Longhorn fan, obviously, and she's also a member of InsideTexas.com, which means she's family. She's a part of our community, and we really appreciate her support. She's an elite member on the Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, and we want you to hit her up if you're thinking about buying a home in the Central Texas area. Her number is 512-784-0505. Again, that number is 512-784-0505. Please reach out to Laura for any and all of your real estate needs. Do you have anything you'd like to say about Laura, Ian?
She's amazing. We just closed this last week on our new home. If my wife wasn't busy preparing this one to be sold, she would come down here and just rave about how great Laura was for the whole experience.
When we're talking about, again, these questions that are coming in today, Ian, seem to be a little bit more scheme based. And I'd love to talk about your thoughts on the jack rotation. Where do you see that? First of all, just if you can give people a quick primer on the jack border field side, where that position plays. I know that you guys did an amazing video on that, and we'll make sure that we throw that into the comments with breaking down the defensive line positions. But what do you see that rotation being during this season? And is Finkley going to be a factor?
That's a really good question. Eric has been reporting throughout the offseason that Burke was likely to get some looks at Jack. Jack is the field side and edge, and you want someone that's big and strong enough there to set the edge and prevent teams from being able to run to the wide side of the field. So it's they're both pass rushing positions, both the Jack and Buck edge positions. But if you're going to pick where you want your best run stopper to be, it's going to be at the Jack. And ideally, he's a little bigger for that reason. And he's also big enough to slide around and play a few different techniques. So he's not just strictly on the wide edge. So Sorrell's been great there for the last 2 years. He's like, 6'3", 265, something like that right now. Burke is probably going to be that big this season. If not this season, then not long after. So that would put him next in line. Finkley is solid there as a run stopper. You would probably put him third on that list if they can get Burke over there consistently. And then, I don't know, that'd probably be it, because everybody else that's amongst the better edges on the team are going to be more pass rushing guys. Like Trey Moore is smaller. Colin Simmons, obviously, you don't want to make his responsibility as a rookie to defend the wide edge, set the edge against the run. That's not really what he's coming in to do in year one. It's going to take him time to develop that discipline. Colton Vasek with time could be good there. We just haven't seen a lot from him yet. Eric, do you have any thoughts here? Or just Sorrell, Burke?
I think it's going to be Sorrell and Burke just because they fit everything you're looking for in that position. You'll probably see Burke out there a little bit more in clear pass rushing situations. Hey, I don't know. Maybe they move Sorrell inside in some of those situations too. He's physically mature at this point, strong in the lower body. Maybe there's some things they can do. Maybe they move Burke inside and move Vasek out there. I don't know. There's a lot of things they could do, but I think Sorrell and Burke will get the lion's share there. Not only does it, you're improving all the pass rush across the board, because Trey Moore is probably going to be a better pass rusher off that boundary side than Burke. At least that's the early word on him. But you can also upgrade the Sorrell side too. But Sorrell's still going to be out there quite a bit. We saw it look like he got mad early in the season. He was getting taken off in a lot of pass rushing situations, and then he really came up big. I think it was against Baylor and made some plays in the back. But he's got kind of a lower floor as far as a pass rusher. Burke, I think, has a much higher or a lower ceiling, I should say. Burke is a guy I think that can put up 8-9 sacks in the NFL. Not sure we can say the same about Sorrell.
We'll stick with you, Eric. And this is, again, a recruiting question. I want to thank Jack for giving us the super chat there. It's generous. It really helps us out, and we do appreciate it. Eric, of the incoming freshmen that were not early enrollees, who has the best chance to see the field in any capacity? So obviously we're including some special teams there.
Yeah, and Jack's going to really regret spending $5 to hear about a punter, but it's going to be Michael Kern, the punter, right? That's the biggest need. You always go by biggest need, where the hole is on the roster. There's not a lot. Look at how many guys they had enroll early. I mean, almost all the high school players enrolled early. There's not many of them. Santana Wilson is one, just because it's hard to leave school early in Arizona. I'm not sure what the exact rules are. It was surprising that Christian Clark was able to do it, the running back. But Santana, I would expect to see him have a chance to be on coverage teams. He's very fast. He's a pretty physical player, even though he's not the biggest. He's a smart player too. They like guys out there that they can trust. He's got the genetics that his dad, Adrian Wilson, had, who was a beast in the NFL. So I would probably go Santana Wilson, but that's more of from special teams. And then, of course, Michael Kern, the punter.
Ian, what's your view about utilizing Gunnar Helm as a goal line threat specifically? I mean, this kind of opens up another topic again of what we're going to be looking like within the red zone. That was clearly an issue last year. How do you see us utilizing Helm specifically in the goal line position, or I'll even call it from the 10s in?
Well, his blocking is definitely a goal line threat. Last year he was good from like once they crossed like the 30 or so, they drew up a few plays for him where he would release on like a feign a block and release down the field on play action or an RPO or something. He has good hands, and if the other team's thinking run and he slips by, that was easy points for Texas a couple times last year. They did it twice against Oklahoma, right? They had Savion Red throw him a pass that he took down to the goal line on 4th and 1. They had him hit from like 30 out on a play action pass on another 4th and 1 against Oklahoma, I think. It feels like David is asking if Helm is going to be a guy that can like go moss somebody on the perimeter.
Right. I think, yeah, I'm getting that sense.
Or make a little nifty move to get open. And there were like hints of that from his high school film or like from a practice cut or two early at Texas. But they haven't really used him that way much. And they didn't even use Jatavian Sanders that way very often. And Jatavian Sanders was theoretically a lot better at it than Helm. So I don't know if we're going to see a lot of that, especially like you watch like Wingo in the spring game had an amazing catch on a ball that was thrown out for him. Jonte Cook has really strong hands. If you're looking for guys that you just throw the ball up in the air in the corner and let them go high point it, I don't think it'll be Helm. I think it'd be like one of those receivers.
Any thoughts here, Eric?
It was weird. It seemed like they used Jatavian in the red zone more in that traditional sense that they're talking about 2 years ago than they did last year. And I'm not sure, why they went away from that. I was standing in the end zone when he caught that one against West Virginia. Beautiful ball elevated for. I'm surprised we didn't see more of that. If they didn't do it to Jatavian last year, I'm not sure that they're going to use Gunner in that way. But they do like to use misdirection and some deception and get him open. I think he had a long one versus Iowa State last year, right? Maybe a 30-yard touchdown.
Yep.
And he had another one where we got tripped up, and Sark said, "Man, I schemed him wide open. He fell down at like the half-yard line or something." I think that's the type of tight end he is. He's not going to beat with pure athleticism, excuse me, but he's athletic enough to take advantage to be a constraint against what the defense is doing.
Moving on, we have this is a question about obviously Gullett. Sorry, how's he coming back from the injury?
Gullett.
That's just I'm sorry, it must be an audio issue. That it's Gullett. That's what I'm clearly saying. You may not hear it's probably a speaker thing. How's he doing coming back from the injury? Is he 100% yet?
Well, Geronimo's he reads Inside Texas, so he should have seen this for sure. Maybe he was in between suspensions when we wrote about him. I'm not sure. But Gullett, the best a man can get. He's healthy. I saw him moving around there in the spring. He looked really good. He's just every time you guys ask about a guy like that, he's got starters in front of him. He's just not better than the starter right now. But he's actually he's back to healthy. He's still learning the position. He missed his senior year due to injury, and before that, he was a raw off-ball linebacker take to begin with. To the point where I thought, hey, just throw this guy out at the edge. He's got the size for it. But no, he's coming along in learning the position. They like him. They're high on him. But he's probably 2 years away from playing. Now, that's a guy that could make a dent on special teams as somebody with size and speed that runs down and wants to hit. But I'm not expecting big things out of him this year. Hopefully they can get him out on the field, though, in some blowouts.
He's a guy that, like Eric was just hinting at, he'll be like a redshirt junior, and all of a sudden he'll be the starting will linebacker, and everyone will be already ready for the next hot recruit. But then Gullett will take the job and be a lot better than everyone thought because they didn't realize that he's looking pretty promising out there, I would say.
Yeah, I'm excited about him. I was, when I saw him moving around in the spring, I focused on him specifically. His fundamentals were good. He looked natural moving as a linebacker, not just coming downhill. And that's important for somebody his size. I mean, he's not a small linebacker. The easiest thing they could have done is just put him at edge, but they still see that upside of him off ball. So that we know he can play edge if he had to. It's exciting to see him back and healthy. He just needs a little more time.
Do you see the playing off ball? Is that more to do with his ability to cover, or what do you attribute that to?
Well, when you talk about off ball linebacker, they have to be able to move backwards and directionally and laterally. If you watch him as an athlete, he's more of a downhill athlete. But he's good enough to move omnidirectionally. But the number one thing for him was always going to be just learning the position, processing it. He was a very raw prospect coming out, and then he missed the senior year on top of it. So I would say he's honestly ahead of schedule of where I thought. I would have assumed they just put him at edge just because that's a far easier position to play with someone his size and his kind of downhill skill set.
One of the players that we talk about a lot, and you're mentioning players coming in raw. Something that's obviously going to be in the news cycle pretty much until he graduates is Arch Manning. Sark was talking about him a little bit this week, and John points something out that might be it's certainly interesting for me to talk about. But the idea that Arch's first season could include Ohio State, Oklahoma, Alabama, Auburn, Missouri, Tennessee, and LSU. I mean, obviously, this is when you start thinking about reasons why you want to let your players develop, if you can, it's this reason right here. I mean, this kid is not in any way going to get a soft welcome into his first season of playing. Is there?
Well, that'd be year 2.
That'd be year 2 in
25. Yeah, I don't think Quinn has 2 more years left at Texas.
Oh, that's fair.
But yeah, that'd be either come back and play that slate or leave early and hand that to Trey Owens. So that'll be something to stress about.
I think he's going to play 2 years. That family gets the long view of it. They're not hurting to jump into the workforce for a couple of reasons. I think he's going to be there for 2 years.
Keep your questions coming. I want to throw it out one more time to our friend Laura Baker. If you are in the Central Texas area, she's someone that just helped out our friend Ian Boyd. Please reach out to her. Her number is 512-784-0505. Again, that's Laura Baker for all your realty needs in the Central Texas area. That's 512-784-0505. One of the things, guys, we were talking about is, and this has been the subtext of today, so I don't think really need to go into it too deeply, but the idea of calling a way too early depth chart moving forward, is there any position in particular, maybe a position group, that you think is most in play? Is there an area there where you can see maybe the most movement? Obviously, we may not be moving as much, moving players around as much in our tackle positions, but what are some other areas that you might see some opportunities for some young bucks getting in there? We'll start with you, Ian.
Will linebacker is probably Benda. As I'm thinking out loud, linebacker is probably pretty settled, but they have a lot of options there. Because I actually think Leongo Lafau could probably play this year if he needed to and be good. Benda is probably going to start next to Hill. Maurice Blackwell has played a ton. He's ready. On defense, probably it's like sorting out the edge positions and who ends up where and when. And then I'll leave offense for Eric. And then safety. I mean, they have like 3 guys at safety that we all think would be hard not to start. And there's only 2 positions. And that's Michael Taff, Derek Williams, and Andrew Makuba. Makuba is like a really good all-around athlete, proven starter from Clemson on a good defense. Taff is just hard to get off the field because he's good and he knows where everybody's supposed to be. He was timely in his playmaking. And then Derek Williams looks like one of the most talented guys in the entire team. So I really don't know exactly how that's going to shake out. But if they have to, I mean, usually you just stick the walk-on on the bench, but they'll have to be able to pull it off first.
Well, we want to thank everybody for checking us out again on a Monday morning. We hope you didn't miss too much of your work meetings. It's an opportunity for us to check in with you and really good questions today. Thank you so much for that. If you have any more questions you want to follow up with the guys, please check us out at InsideTexas.com. We are running a special right now. It's IT1 is the promo code. That'll give you 2 months for $1, which is a great opportunity. You're going to get into that June visit season. We thank you so much for checking us out, and we will see you next time.